Hey, this is Tim with PM-ProLearn, and we're here today to talk to you about earned value management. Specifically, we want to teach you 5 steps to solve earned value management questions that require you to calculate for an unknown or solve for an unknown quantity. So this is PMP hack number 2, PM-ProLearn teaching you how to hack the PMP exam. So what are the benefits of our PM-ProLearn 5-step method? First of all, make sure that you understand why you would want to do this. Number one, our method provides a structure to every EVM question that requires you to solve for an unknown variable or quantity. When you come upon these earned value management questions on the PMP exam, they're very confusing and there's a lot of information in there that's intended to throw you off. So you need some structured way of how to approach these questions so that it doesn't stress you out on the exam and you have a starting point. So you're not trying to figure that out on every question. The second benefit of the 5-step method, it identifies the one formula that should be used to solve for the unknown variable. There's one formula out of there's actually 13 that you probably need to know for earned value management. There's one formula that should be used to solve for the unknown variable, and if you don't identify the right formula, you're obviously not going to get it correct. So our 5-step method is going to provide the structure that guides you and identifies the one formula that you should use to solve for it. Number 3, our method eliminates extraneous information from consideration or from view. So when you're going through these questions, they give you a lot of additional information or noise that's in the question that's meant to throw you off. They give you things that you don't need in order to solve the problem, and it can be very confusing. So our method will eliminate that extraneous information from your thought process, and you won't even key in on it. It will not confuse you. Fourth, our method turns earned value management questions into a simple algebra problem. At the very end of the 5th step, what you're left with is a simple algebra problem where you're solving for an unknown quantity. That's it. So let's look at an example question you might see on the PMP exam. You're a PM managing a project to build a 4-story office building with 1.5 floors completed so far. You originally estimated that each floor would cost $100,000 per floor, but you recently calculated your CPI at 0.89 and your SV at $2,000. What is the amount of work you expected to complete at this point? So in this question, you got to know a couple, you need some background knowledge about earned value management. You need to know what CPI is. You need to know what SV stands for. That's all things that you'll get when you sit through a PMP bootcamp class like provided by PM-ProLearn. But CPI stands for Cost Performance Index. SV stands for Schedule Variance. And the question here is, what is the amount of work you expected to complete at this point in the project? So what are the steps? First step in our 5-step method is make sure I understand what unknown variable I'm being asked to solve for. That can be very confusing. So stop when you read the question. First of all, look at that and think, okay, I know all of my EVM variables. I know what CPI is and SV, and I know PV and EV and VAC, all these variables that you're going to learn in a PMP bootcamp. You need to figure out which one you're being asked to solve for in the question. If you get that wrong, obviously you're solving for the wrong thing. You're going to get the answer wrong. Then determine what formulas can possibly be used to solve for it. There are several formulas for each variable, and you need to figure out which one of the formulas out of the 13 that you've learned for your EVM questions, which one of those 13 formulas should I use to solve for this? And there's a hint here to use your EVM map. Now, if you take the PM-ProLearn PMP Bootcamp, you'll have that map in your hand. It's something that we've designed, and I'm going to give you a snapshot picture over here in just a minute. Step 3, once I know the formulas that I can use to solve for my unknown variable, then I need to determine what variables are known or given by the information provided in the question. So the question up there has a lot of information. We've got numbers in there. They're talking about how much is completed so far, CPI, SV. We got dollar values in there. So what variables are known by the information provided? I need to be able to extrapolate the information correctly. Step 4, once I know what the variables are that are given to me in the question, I simply plug those known variables into the formulas that I identified back here in step 2. I take the information given in the question, I plug them into the formulas, and then I identify which formula is going to allow me to solve for the unknown variable. Remember, when you're doing simple algebra, if you're trying to solve for an unknown variable, you need to have at least 2 out of the 3 variables in the question. Like, 1 plus x equals 2. So I know two of the variables. I know 1 and 2. I got to solve for x. So you're going to need to look at your formulas and identify which formula gives you the ability to solve for that one unknown thing. And then step 5 is simply to reduce it down to the algebraic problem and solve for that unknown variable. Rearrange it using that 9th grade algebra that you learned and solve for x or solve for the unknown quantity. Okay, so we gave you a hint up here to use the EVM map. So now I'm going to give you a sneak peek at the PM-ProLearn EVM map. And this is basically page 224 in the PMBOK with all the formulas simplified down and mapped out. So we've got a good process here for you to be able to learn, memorize the formulas, and to associate how they're linked together. So you want to get more about that formula map, sign up at www.pmprolearn.com for one of our courses, either self-paced or instructor-assisted or instructor-led. We'll be glad to hook you up with that map and show you how it works. One thing I want you to get out of this, though, I want you to look at our legend. We talk about the formulas. We break them down into planned formulas, actual formulas, forecast, and target. And the PMBOK doesn't do that for you. We've done that for you here. And so I'm going to show you on the next page. You're going to see some colors. And so I wanted to show you this map where those color codes come from. So let's look at our PMP example question again, and we're going to apply the 5-step method to it. So you're a PM managing a project to build a 4-story office building with 1.5 floors completed. You originally estimated each floor was going to be $100,000. And you calculated your CPI at 0.89 and your SV at 2,000. So what's the amount of work you expected to complete at this point? Step 1, what was that? Figure out what unknown variable they're asking me to solve for. In this question, they're asking you what is the amount of work you expected to complete or you planned to complete by this point. So that's called planned value. And I'm not going to go into how you determine that. You need to take a course on that, but I'm just giving you the 5 steps. So planned value tells me the amount of work that I expect or plan to complete by any point in the project. So once I know that, I can move to step 2. Step 2 is going to be where I'll look and at my 13 formulas, look back at my earned value formula map and figure out which one of those formulas can be used to solve for PV, or which formulas contain the variable PV. And here they are. You've got 3 of them, and see the colors there. So first of all, we've got PV, or planned value, is equal to BAC, which is budget at completion, timed plan percent complete. So that's one formula we could possibly use. Or I could use earned value minus planned value equals schedule variance, because again, we see planned value as a variable in that equation. And then the next one is earned value divided by planned value equals schedule performance index. Notice that these 3 formulas, all 3 of them use the variable of PV. So therefore, we could use one of these formulas to solve for PV by rearranging it if we knew the other 2 variables in the question. So step 3 then is to pull out of the question what are all the information that we know. So we're going to go over this quickly. So first of all, we know the BAC, the budget at completion. The budget at completion is simply how much we originally estimated the whole building was going to cost. So I'm building a 4-story office building. Each floor is supposed to cost $100,000 per floor. That means the whole building, once complete, is planned to cost $400,000. So we know the BAC. We can determine the EV, or the earned value, by doing this. I know that I've completed 1.5 floors, right, out of the 4 floors. So that gives me the actual percentage of the building that's completed. 1.5 divided by 4 is going to give me that actual percentage complete. And I'm going to multiply it times the BAC, or the budget at completion. That gives me my earned value, because the formula for earned value, we'll get into in the course if you take it, back on your formula map, EV is equal to that, BAC times actual percent complete. So I can determine my earned value with the information given here. And then, of course, they've outright given me SV, it's equal to $2,000, and they've given me CPI, it's equal to 0.89. So that's all of the information or variables that I can glean out of reading that question. So now step 4 is to take this information that they've given me and plug it into those formulas. So let's do that. The first formula was PV equals BAC times planned percent complete. So I know one of those things. I know BAC. I can plug in that $400,000, but I still don't know PV. I don't know planned percent complete. It wasn't anything I could determine based on the information there. The next formula over is earned value, right? Earned value minus planned value equals schedule variance. So I know earned value. It's $150,000 because my BAC of $400,000 times the fact that I've got 1.5 out of 4 floors complete is going to give me $150,000. So minus PV, and then our $2,000 is the schedule variance. So in this particular instance, I know earned value and I know schedule variance, and so this one's looking promising. I can probably solve for PV here because I know 2 out of the 3 variables. How about the last one? The last one was EV divided by PV equals SPI. So I know my earned value. I figured it out. It's $150,000. And I can divide it by PV to get SPI, but I don't know PV still, and I wasn't given SPI in the problem. So what we have here is 2 formulas that only have one unknown or one known variable and 2 unknowns. There's no way to use those formulas to solve for PV. But this middle formula, we have 2 of the unknown variables. We know the earned value is $150,000. I've completed 1.5 floors that are going to cost me $100,000 per, so it's $150,000 of earned value. And I also know the schedule variance. So I can use this one to solve for planned value. So now step 5 is simply to rearrange that formula to solve for PV. So we start out with the formula, and the first step is we got to get PV on one side of the equation. So first we're going to add PV to both sides. Remember, basic algebra, anything you do to one side of the equation, you got to do the other one. So we add PV to both sides. Then we're going to subtract 2,000 from each side to get all the dollar values on one side. And that leaves us 150,000 minus 2,000 equals PV. And so lastly, we simply solve for that planned value. It's $148,000 because 150 minus 2,000, 148. So there's our answer. The 5 steps have given us the structure. They've identified the formulas that we need. They've eliminated extraneous information because notice, we never even talked about CPI, did we? Never even talked about it once we got down here into the formula. So it takes your mind off of that extraneous information, and it reduced it to a simple algebraic problem. So bullet point, make sure you know I've already talked about this. There's noise in those EVM questions, and there's extraneous information. Notice we didn't use CPI to solve for it, although it was given the equation. However, our step-by-step process, our 5-step process, eliminated that from your thinking. So that's how to use PM-ProLearn's 5-step method to provide structure and solve those EVM problems. There's obviously a lot more to earned value management. I'll probably breeze through some things that still may be confusing for you, like how did we get all that information out of the question, and how did I know what the earned value was. But today my goal is just to show you the 5-step method. If you want to get a little bit more depth in your earned value management training, come on over to PM-ProLearn.com and sign up for one of our either self-paced courses, instructor-assisted, or instructor-led webinars, or on-site training. We'll be glad to teach you more. Until next time, this is Tim from PM-ProLearn. Happy studying.